Throughout your journey in Genshin Impact, you've probably come across many different enemies and monsters. From hilichurls to bishops, and the abyss to the Fatui, there is no lack of opponents for travelers to take down. But for me, one certain enemy has stuck out as a potential hint to certain characters we'll meet later in the story. In this video, I'll go over the slime theory, and how the slimes of Teyvat could reflect the Seven Archons. To start off this video, I'm going to explain how the three Archons we have met relate to the slimes of their elements, beginning with the Anemo Archon Barbados, or Venti. His relation to the Anemo slime is attack-based. This trend is followed by Zhongli and the Geo slime, but once we reach Inazuma, it seems the relations shift to also include story elements. I'll be looking into both of these relations for each of the unreleased Archons in this video. Anyways, the large Anemo slime has an attack where if you are too far away, it will jump up into the air and fire a few ranged projectiles at the player. This is similar to Venti's E-attack, as well as a reference to the fact that he uses a bow, a ranged weapon. When this slime is defeated, it produces an air current, which, again, is similar to Venti's E-attack. And that's really it for Anemo. I won't be going into much detail for the first three elements, but when we get into the latter four elements, I'll be going into much more speculation about the connections between the slimes and the Archons. Next up, we have the Geo slimes, of course related to the Geo Archon Morax, better known as Zhongli. Like the Anemo slimes, these creatures are related to their Archon based on their attacks. When you first encounter a large Geo slime, you will immediately notice it has a shield, much like Zhongli does when you press and hold his E-attack. When their shields break, their fighting style switches to more of a jump and fall attack. This mimics Zhongli's burst, in which he summons a giant meteor that falls onto all of his enemies. And that's it for Geo. Now we move on from the Archons that we've had since around the time of the game's launch. With these next elements, I'll be looking into both gameplay and story related connections that we have seen or could see with each Archon and slime. In version 2.1, the Raiden Shogun was released as a playable character. The main story of Inazuma was also wrapped up in this version. Both of these elements are connected to the Electro slimes. From now on, each slime could possibly have a story and gameplay element related to their respective Archons. Starting with the relation to the story, there are two different variations of the large Electro slime, the purple and the yellow, for simple terms. This is a reference to either the twin gods Baal and Beelzebul, or Beelzebul and her Raiden Shogun puppet. As for the relation to the gameplay, when these two different slimes are near each other, an electric current will be formed between them, which deals extra damage. This is similar to Raiden's E-attack, which allows for attacks to have a second coordinated attack that deals electro damage. These slimes can also create a triangular cage of sorts that can zap the player, which looks a little bit like the Chakra Desarada, which Raiden uses for her burst. And that's it for Electro. From now on, this video will be getting a lot more into the speculation side of things. The Archons for the next four elements haven't been released yet, so we basically know next to nothing about what their relations could be, but still, that's why we speculate. Up first for the unreleased Archons is the Dendro Archon of Sumeru, the God of Wisdom. We don't know too much about Sumeru, but we do know that Lesser Lord Kusanali is the Archon, and that there are people known as the Sages that help her rule the nation. We learn from Yae Miko at the end of the Inazuma questline that knowledge is treated as a resource in Sumeru, and she questions if this was the idea of Kusanali or the Sages. Dainsleif also provides us with some story hints with his dialogue in the Teyvat storyline preview. The god of wisdom's enemy is wisdom itself, and the oasis of knowledge is a mirage in the desert of ignorance. In the city of scholars there is a push for folly, yet the god of wisdom makes no argument against it. I'll bring this all together soon, but first, let's talk about the large Dendro slime. It hides underground with only the flower on its head sticking out. It will emerge when the player gets close and then walks away, or when the flower on its head is destroyed. The slime can also use seeds to summon smaller Dendro slimes. It can also create a poison gas cloud that deals Dendro damage. Now, how does this connect to Kusanali? I'll start by explaining the potential story aspects. Kusanali could be a more reclusive god, devoted to gaining more knowledge alone and only coming out when she is threatened or disturbed, much like with the flower on the large Dendro slime. What knowledge may she be trying to find? Well, I have a few ideas about that, but I'll talk about those in a later video. Anyways, the large slime summoning other slimes may refer to how Kusanali could call on the sages of Sumeru for her protection. Or the flower itself could also represent the sages. Perhaps they work on everything in public while Kusanali is busy behind the scenes. In the Sumeru Archon quests, we may have to fight these sages in order to get a chance to speak with Kusanali. Now onto our combat abilities. So far we've seen most of the Dendro enemies using the element as a defensive measure. The Hilichurls and Minotaurs use the Dendro slimes as a shield, and the Samatrals cast walls of thorns to prevent players from reaching them. If this is the case with Kusanali as well, perhaps she will use a catalyst as a weapon, allowing her to create shields or decoys and protect herself from any threats. The large Dendro slimes are also described to have potential medicinal properties, so maybe Kusanali could have some healing capabilities as well. Sumeru will be the next nation released into the game, so we'll find out if these ideas could be right sooner than the others. Anyways, let's now move on to the next element. Moving on now, the next two Archons are probably the ones we know least about. Starting with the Hydro Archon from Fontaine, we have the God of Justice. We don't even know her actual name, just her ideal. Anyways, Dainsleif provides us with some information about her in the Teyvat storyline preview as well. The God of Justice lives for the spectacle of the courtroom, seeking to judge all other gods. But even she knows not to make an enemy of the divine. We also get some more hints about her personality from the Vararonda Lazurite gemstone. My ideals have no stains, I must correct you. People here bear no sins in the eyes of the gods. Only laws in the tribunal can judge someone. They can even judge me. So praise my magnificence and purity. Now, before I get my thoughts out, I'll go over the large Hydro Slime's attacks. Their unique attack involves them throwing a bubble at the player, which can trap them. However, the bubble is also capable of trapping the slime's allies as well, giving the player the advantage. Anyways, let's begin with the possible story connections to the God of Justice. The bubbles released by the slimes could represent how the Hydro Archon seeks to judge everyone, and to do that, they have to be in one place to receive their punishment. From her gemstone description, she seems to think highly of her opinions, and from Dainsleif, we learn that she seeks to judge everyone, even gods. This could mirror how the bubble also affects the slime's allies, as this Archon wants to judge everyone anyways. Now, as for combat relations, I believe the Hydro Archon would be a ranged fighter, either a bow or a catalyst. Her moveset may revolve around imprisoning opponents in bubbles, much like the slimes, and then dealing damage while they are unable to move. Maybe you could also inflict the bubble onto yourself, which in exchange for limiting movements for a few seconds, could heal your characters tremendously. And that's all the ideas I have for the Hydro Archon, so let's move on to the next element, which unfortunately we also don't know too much about. The next element we have is Pyro, of course relating to Murata, who is the god of war and the Pyro Archon of Natlan. As with the previous Archons, we can get hints about them from Dainsleif in the Teyvat storyline preview. The rules of war are woven in the womb. The victors shall burn bright, while the losers must turn to ash. The god of war shares this secret with the traveler. It is because she has her reasons. In the description for the Agnitis Agate gemstone, we also learn more about the ideals behind this Archon. A pilgrimage for a wish, a battle to earn a name, burnt to cinders for a dream. If the intention yet remains, achieved someone's truth he has. Anyways, before I get any further into my thoughts, I'll explain the large Pyro Slime's attacks. These slimes can fire 3 fireballs in a row at the player, which deal pyro damage. Upon death, if ignited, these slimes will also explode. So now, let's go over the possible story connections to the Pyro Archon. The multiple projectiles at a time and the explosion could both represent Murata's fiery and war-driven personality, as hinted at with Dainsleif and her gemstone. In one of his voice lines, Venti describes her as a wayward, warmongering wretch, which also backs this up. But who would Murata want to go to war against? It could be the Fatui, as the Traveler could warn her about them stealing the Gnosis. But it could also be the Heavenly Principles or the Abyss, and in the end, the Archons could all team up against them. And moving on to the combat ideas, the multiple fireballs and explosions make me think she'll use a catalyst, causing explosions all around the battlefield. And with the title of the Archon quest for Natlin, Incandescent Ode of Resurrection, perhaps she could also be a healer, resurrecting and healing her allies in order to keep the pressure on in battle. And that's all the ideas I have for Murata. So now it's time for the final element, and honestly, the one I'm most excited to learn about. And here we are, the final element. This of course is Cryo, relating to the Tsaritsa, the Cryo Archon of Snezhnaya. She is unique among the 7, as we still do not know her divine ideal. Anyways, we once again get hints about her from Dainsleif in the Teyvat storyline preview. She is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any left for her. Her followers only hope to be on her side when the day of her rebellion against the divine comes at last. We again learn more about this Archon from her element's gemstone, in this case being the Shivata Jade gemstone. Sorry to also have you shoulder the grievances of the world. Since you could endure my bitter cold, you must have the desire to burn. Then, burn away the old world for me. We also get some hints about her in one of Tartaglia's voice lines, which is actually about the Tsaritsa. Her Royal Highness the Tsaritsa is actually a gentle soul. Too gentle, in fact, and that's why she had to harden herself. Likewise, she declared war against the whole world only because she dreams of peace. Anyways, let's get into the large Cryo Slime's attacks. While its shield is up, it will fire 3 consecutive ice shards at the player. If the shield is broken, the slime will retreat and form a cloud of icy mist while it waits for its shield to regenerate. So, as for the story connections, the slime shield is most likely a reference to how the Tsaritsa hardened herself for the goal of peace. She may dream of protecting her people, but she is doing so through war. Perhaps her quest to steal the Gnosis is to protect the people of Teyvat from a greater threat. This could be Celestia, the Abyss, or something else we just don't know yet. From what I can tell, the Tsaritsa could have been the god of love, but after the Cataclysm, her ideal changed. Now, let's move on to her combat ideas. Similarly to the Pyro Slimes, the 3 consecutive attacks make me think she'll use a catalyst. She will also most likely have a shield, similar to the connection between the Geo Slimes and Zhongli. Maybe she could also form an area of mist like the slime does, and this mist could potentially heal party members. Anyways, that is all for the Cryo element, and that's actually all I have for you guys today, so thank you so much for watching. At this point, of course, this is all speculation, and we don't really have any way to confirm or deny any of it. In the coming years when the Archons release, I will definitely make follow-up videos to see what I got right or wrong. I'd also love to hear your ideas in the comments below. Have a wonderful idea, and I'll see you all in the next video.